But people don't want to see that. It's too complex and nuanced an issue for people to say, we're going to legalize all drugs. People would go crazy. Like, drugs are bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it hinges on that regulation part, because it's legalize, tax, and regulate. And if you regulate it effectively, what you're doing is you're taking like a safer version of all the different drugs and allowing it on the market. Like, I'm not saying you should be able to go to the store and get, you know, fucking crystal meth or crocodile, right? These are drugs that by their very nature, the way they're made, like you could rot your teeth out of your mouth with crystal meth, or you take crocodile, which is like poor man's heroin, and your fucking flesh rots off. We've seen those horrors. Or bath salts. People are fucking eating people's faces on bath salts. We're not saying legalize that stuff. We're saying legalize, tax, and regulate drugs so you create kind of like a safe alternative that still gives a semblance of that particular high, whether it's an upper or downer or hallucinogenic or whatever. Yeah. And then you have a more safer situation. I mean, look, there's evidence that these safe injection sites, right? People look at that and they go, oh my God, you're incentivizing people to go take fucking heroin. This is crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? The reality is when you have safe injection sites, you have experts there, so you're not gonna pass herpes around or pass diseases around. Nobody's gonna overdose because they took a bad batch. You just have professionals there who say, hey, we can save you if something bad happens, and they can test the drugs to make sure they're not fucking tainted. So really all those things do is make it safer for people. But just the optics of that are like, oh, like it seems like you're incentivizing going to take heroin.
Yeah, and the places that have done that, like Oregon, are a fucking holy mess. That's also part of the problem with decriminalization.
My understanding was that, so they did it in New York City. I don't know if they're still doing it, but like on the first day, they saved like 12 people's lives. You know, and then I think in Portugal, they've experimented with stuff like this, and they've had some positive results. So, I mean, it's tricky, but, you know.
Portugal's done a great job of decriminalizing things.
I'm on the side of leaning as much as you can towards freedom, but being intelligent with the regulations. Yeah. That's my instinct usually.
Well, when you talk to guys like Dr. Carl Hart, have you ever seen...
I have. I've interviewed him. He's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. And his perspective is that we have a very distorted perception of what the dangers of a lot of these drugs are in the first place.
Yeah.
And that we have demonized a lot of these things. And you know, when he first started studying drugs, he was a clinical researcher. He was like a straightforward scientist, teetotaler, wasn't doing anything. And then he was realizing this is all bullshit and started experimenting personally with these different drugs. And like, there's some great benefits to that if used responsibly, which he does.
He did recreational heroin. He said that was my favorite one.
Still does.
Yeah.
Still does, and openly talks about it.
And he keeps his job. He does phenomenal writing. And look, the fact of the matter is, I think most people who are drug users actually fall in that category. I think these stats come right out of his book. Like 80% of people who do any drug, it's kind of like a recreational thing where they can do it, and they can. There are a lot of other factors that are in play where, you know, people are dealing with severe mental illness or extreme poverty. You mix those things with somebody who's addicted to drugs, and it's going to get ugly.
Right,
you know, somebody's going to be homeless.
For escape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
But then there's also drugs that could help people get off of these things, like Ibogaine. That's absolutely illegal, but people have had great benefits in going to Mexico and going to these Ibogaine retreats, and then they come back and they have no problems with any of these drugs.
Have you ever done that one?
No.
No. Is it a psychedelic one?
Well, I think it's categorized as a psychedelic, but it's a dissociative. It's a dissociative, I think. What is a? Let's look at what is the.
That's exactly what you just said.
Okay.
It's a dissociative psychedelic.
What it does is the people that have taken it, say Ibogaine is a dissociative psychedelic with, how do you say that word? Oniric? Oniric properties that has multiple aforementioned anti-addictive mechanisms, as well as the ability to generate therapeutic psychological insights, suggesting promise in treating alcohol use disorders. So that the people that I know that have gone over there, my friend Ed Clay went over there because he had a problem with pills, and it cured him of it, and nothing else would. He was having a real problem. He had back injury, got on oxycodone or one of those, and had a real issue with getting off of it, but recognized like, hey, I've got a problem. I have to figure out a way to deal with this, and then went to Mexico, went through an Ibogaine retreat, did it, came back, and said, oh my God, why isn't this legal? And then started a center of his own in Mexico because of that. I think that what it does to people is it lets them recognize what are the patterns that's following them into this addiction cycle, and what is wrong with them. What trauma have they experienced when they were younger that's causing them to try to escape?
Yeah, it's for a lot of people, I think drugs like that are kind of like psychological resets.
Yes.
You know, and like you mentioned before, we've seen this. There's a whole bunch of studies coming out now with MDMA, with psilocybin, and treating people who have severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, end of life concerns. You know, you
Yeah.
get diagnosed with terminal illness, and you feel like you don't even have the fucking will to live. And then you
Right.
take a trip on the right substance, and all of a sudden you feel hope. You feel happy.
Yes.
You know, and so these things have tremendous benefit. But it's a very weird approach that we've had from the top down now for a long time, where it's just viewed as just say no, it's all evil, it's all wrong. Look, these things are benefits, man. I mean, every morning I wake up, I have caffeine.
Yeah.
Caffeine's a fucking drug.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people don't think of it like that, but it's true. You go have a Monster Energy, you have a Red Bull, you have some alcohol at night. Like, you're tweaking your consciousness in various ways, and
Yes.
it can be an enhancement for sure. I probably do better work on my show when I'm on a shitload of caffeine, right?
Yeah.
So